Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Jonathan Glazer's Sexy Beast in the year 2000. So, here is the Blu-ray, and basically this is a film that I rewatched on Friday, and I think I saw it around about 10 years ago for the first time, and basically, yeah, it's the year 2000, it's a British film, and I just thought, wow, that was something else. I was blown away by it. I just kind of stumbled across it, and definitely one of the most underrated films, certainly of the century. And Ben Kingsley, Ray Winstone's in this film as well. Of course, the main character of Gal, and Ian McShane as well. They're the kind of most famous people in the film. And the basic plot of this film, and it is kind of a basic plot. It's a very, very short film, but it's a basic plot of Gal is ex-convict. He's retired. He's got a villa in Spain, and he lives with his wife, Dee Dee, and his best friends, and one of them being Jackie, who has quite a big kind of role in the film. But yes, they live in this villa, and basically, eventually, once everything you see everything's kind of, great. They're all having fun. This character of Don Logan comes into the film. Now, played by Ben Kingsley. Basically, this character of Don. He asks, Ray Winstone's character to do one last job, bank heist. And yes, Ray Winstone, his character of Gal, does not want to do it, and he's quite happy kind of living where he is and not risking anything, going back into the job. And Don Logan, when I say he asks him, he doesn't really ask him. He basically tries to force him, and he doesn't take no for an answer, basically it all unfolds from there. Eventually Ray Winstone does do the heist, but it doesn't all go, swimmingly and everything like that. And, things happen along the way. And it's basically, a lot of the film is, it's set in this villa, and it's basically the constantly rising escalation between, the character of Don Logan and Gal. And, that is really the plot of the film. What happens along the way, I'm not going to get into. But yes, this film, is a stunning film. And, Ben Kingsley, just plays one of the greatest villains of all time, actually. And, yeah, you heard right, a villain. Now, Ben Kingsley is not really known for playing villains too much in films. Of course, the Mandarin, but, I'm not going to talk about that. And he's not great in that, as that character. But yes, basically, he's always known for quite peaceful roles. Gandhi, Isaac Stern in Schindler's List, some of the most kind of warmest characters, in cinema and stuff, and it's very, very peaceful. In this film, he is brutal. He constantly swears, and it's just one of the most aggressive characters in cinema, and it's quite shocking to see that. Very, very shocking. He actually is, he's kind of just this all-out swearing English guy, and wow, what a performance! Unbelievable, and you really just have to see it to kind of know what I'm on about. But wow, it's something else, and it's just such a tense film. Once he comes into it, he kind of you just kind of want this character of Gal to be left alone, because you kind of at the first sort of 15-20 minutes, you see them kind of just going out to eat and stuff. As well as this character of Enrique, it's basically a young Spanish boy who just basically comes around, to help out and stuff, clean the place and everything like that, at the villa, and that's great as well. I really loved them scenes. Very, very good character, and the way that he's with Ray Winstone and his best friend, early on they go shooting and stuff. I loved them scenes. They're really, really touching moments. And just very, very enjoyable. You kind of see them all the first 15-20 minutes, and it's basically everything going swimmingly. And once Ben Kingsley comes into the film, it all changes. And basically, he doesn't leave them alone. And of course, great comedy in the film as well. Through that, but it is very, very shocking stuff. And basically just does not leave them alone, and just constantly keeps getting at this character of Gal to go and do this heist, and just does not leave him alone. constantly swearing, being aggressive, and it's quite, well, he's got kind of a past with Jackie, which gets brought up, and it adds loads of tension within this group, and it just makes for absolutely wonderful cinema. Really, it's such a great film, and kind of around the hour mark or a bit before that, you know, it's the final act and it's kind of the heist, which goes down. Won't say what happens there or who's involved, but yeah, that's basically that, and then the aftermath and what pans out there. As well, throughout the film, you see this kind of demonic rabbit, and basically, it's more symbolic than anything. You know, it's in the character of Gal's mind, but it does, of course, symbolise many things. You know, kind of, you could say it's Ben Kingsley at times as well. You know, his character Don Logan. You could say it's a kind of incarnation of him. You know, and the kind of mood that he brings, and the way he's always kind of there lingering. But it's very out there, you could say, and I can understand if people don't like that. You know, you may find it pretentious. And I must say, one of my cons of the film would be the ending shot, with that kind of the ending shots. You know, the ending, and it involves that kind of thing. But apart from that, you know, the way that this kind of rabbit was used throughout the film, I think, was really, really effective. You know, added loads of just atmosphere to the film, and made it, you know, it was bizarre, but it kind of worked as well at the same time, and you know, just added this creepiness, and it's just really the uneasy feel that the film has as well, and you know, the film just gets better and better until the final act. You know, it does have some flaws, I feel. The actual heist itself, now, you know, a lot of films, as I've said on my channel, you know, it's very, very hard to get underwater scenes right, let alone great. And you know, some of the bank heist does involve them underwater, and I just think it could have been done better. It wasn't made as compelling as it should have. You know, all the tension that was kind of there on the build-up, other parts in the heist for sure, and stuff like that wasn't quite there. The scenes under the water just wasn't, you know, it just kind of slowed it down and just didn't, once again, just didn't work perfectly for me. And just some of the bits there slightly lost focus of you know, the greatness of the rest of the film. The kind of focus on characters and stuff, and I just think it wasn't quite as good as the rest of the film, or nowhere near as good as the rest of the film. But the last kind of 10 minutes or so is great again, and Ian McShane in this film, you know, is stunning. He plays Teddy, and he's basically the boss of all these kind of criminals. He runs the show basically, and yeah, he's absolutely great in this film. I think as well he adds a lot of the comedy, but as well, you know, things happen, developments throughout the film, and it kind of catches on, and yeah, basically he is great in this film. He has a lot of the tension, again in the final act. But yeah, you know, I think this is a stunning film. The cinematography, you know, is stunning. I think the kind of landscape shots as well. You know, it kind of reminds me of No Country for Old Men. You know, in the kind of the bits when they're out shooting and stuff, and you know, it's great. You know, it's great visuals in this film, and as well, you know, the dark scenes as well. You know, at night time as well, greatly shot. I feel the editing in this film is stunning, and as I say, I love the way that the kind of demon rabbit, you know, is reused for the most part of the film, and the way it kind of juxtaposes with what's going on in the actual film. It's great, and I think it's really, really great the way, you know, the symbolic nature of it, and yeah, basically this film, you know, the tensions rise. The acting is just stunning in this film. Ben Kingsley, as I say, is another level really. Ray Winstone, great character, protagonist, someone that you really care for. You know, but he is a flawed human, and basically, you really feel for him. You know, when Don Logan comes into the film, very much so, and you kind of just want him to be left alone, and kind of just tell him no, basically. But of course, things aren't that easy, and you know, he's scared for his family and everything as well. You know, his wife and his friends as well, and it's not that easy. But basically, you want, at least I did, root for this character, and I think the performance was great. Ray Winstone, I've never really seen him give, you know, a bad performance. I don't believe. But yeah, I think he's a great actor and he's great in this. You could say it's his biggest role really. But yeah, I know not a lot of people have actually seen the film Scum. But I would highly recommend that. Very very gritty kind of shocking British film that was made in the 70s, and that's basically his first role, and he was great in that. But apart from that, I think maybe this is his biggest role, and yeah, again, not a lot of people have actually seen the film too much. I would highly recommend this film. It's a great film. Direction by Jonathan Glazer is just great. The way this film comes together, it's just wonderful, really. As I say, the bits in the heist, the only things that weren't, I think controlled really. So the direction there wasn't great. The rest of the film, I think it was stunning direction. I think the cinematography as well. The editing is so sharp, precise, and it really is. It's just great. The way that the scenes, in particular in Spain, are shot, and yeah, it's just a great film. I think the characters in this film very very likable. The main four characters. I loved all these scenes. And you could say, yeah, the drama isn't quite there in the first 20 minutes, but that's not really the point, of the film. It's kind of just them, basically just seeing them enjoy themselves, kind of thing. And then when the character of Don Logan comes in, that's when it gets a lot better, but it gets more tense, uneasy. And I think the way that through the performances, the editing and just the way that direction is, the way that it's able to escalate and keep escalating and just piling on top, the tension, the uneasy feel, and the kind of frustration really that you kind of feel alongside, Gal really in the film. It's just masterful, and I feel, the way it all pans out is stunning really. I'm not going to ruin anything that happened if you've not seen the film, because it really, it's something that when you first see it, it's really just very, very unexpected at times as well. But yes, I think, it's a very, very short film, but it's a great film, and I'd have to give it a 96%. It does have some flaws. I've said, of course, some of the high stuff, really that is some of the main stuff that just brings the film down a bit. Just because it is a short film, I have to take quite a few marks off of that, because it was around about 10 minutes or so. And just some of the heist wasn't great, and it just wasn't. Some of the bits near the in the second half of the film just wasn't quite masterful. But the tone is pretty much flawless. I love the opening shots as well. With the boulder, and it's just great. The irony there, and I just think it has some flaws here and there, and some of the actual heist is not as great as it could have been. This film works best when it is dealing with the characters, and that slightly loses focus in some of them parts in the final act. But again, it picks up right at the end, and it kind of just comes together really wonderfully. I think the characters are great. Of course, a stunning villain, a great protagonist who's thoroughly likable, but also, he has his flaws, as a human, and he's not just this kind of one-note character. He is very, very complex, and I just think that works perfectly, really, the kind of contrast between him and Don Logan, and the way it kind of just deals with the exposition in the film of the kind of the past of Ray Winston's character. I think is great, and the way it kind of haunts him and it comes back on him. Basically, that's what Ben Kingsley's character is. Really, he's kind of like an omen, and I love the way that that's mirrored as well through Demon Rabbit. As I say, the actual ending, involving that kind of stuff, was a bit stupid. It was a bit out of place, I feel, and you could say it was pretentious at the end. Just wasn't needed. Just didn't fit the tone of the rest of the film. But that's my flaws. Other than that, this is a great film. I think it has got some definitely masterful moments. Not quite a masterpiece for me, overall, but not far off. I would say, not massively far off. I think it's a stunning film. The acting is superior, really, from those involved. Ian McShane as well. He's great in this film, as always. You know, he's always great in everything I've seen him in. And you know, I just think the editing, the cinematography, as I say, the script is as well. I didn't mention too much. The script is just great, and the way it's kind of this realistic dialogue. You know what they're going for there. This kind of the swearing in this film, I think is quite genius, and just the way, you know, you just watch it and find out what I mean. The way it's done actually is just great. It's like Tarantino, the dialogue, in a way, and you know, of course, not very different. You know, it's much more gritty, kind of going for realism there. But you know, in the way that the kind of the repetition of certain, you know, swear words and everything, it's just great. And yeah, I just think it's a very gritty film, but as a film, you know, it's got great characters, and it is very touching. And you know, I felt quite a lot for these characters, and yeah, just from start to finish, mostly. As I say, it does suffer a bit, you know, with the actual heist. It is a stunning film, gripping film that you know, highly recommend, massively. You know, not a lot of people have seen it, and you know, just check it out. You know, it's a great film. You know, with a great cast and characters, and yeah, thoroughly entertaining. So thanks for watching my review of Sexy Beast.